Anderson. I'm the president of the Charlton Grange, number 92. Who knows what a Grange is? This is the room that should raise their hands. No one ever knows what a Grange is. We've been around for 148 years. We're actually starting to plan our 150th. We've got quite a few Grange members in here. Our Vice President, Scott Herbert, is in the back, also available to introduce you to the Grange. We are an agricultural group. We meet the first Tuesday of every month for agricultural programming. You guys are way out of our league, and I think we've added more farming horsepower in the last 10 minutes in this building than we've probably had in the last 50 years. I'm impressed. I think it's great just talking to a few of those. I'm a part owner of a family collaborative farm in Charlton. I've met most of you, and I was also going to come up and introduce Pamela, but she does not need any introduction because I think she hugged or kissed every single person that walked in the room. So I will let you know that her and I sort of grew up together, and we just learned that today, so very small world. Just a couple of quick notes. Fire exit in the back, fire exit over there. We prefer this door because that's a one-time use door. We are a very old building, just hanging on to some of the grandfathering that is allowed in the world, and we should certainly use them, but we don't expect any problems, but if we do, they're there. So I'll hand it over to Pamela.
Thank you.
Thank you. We enjoy the evening.
Wow. Thank you all for coming. This is extraordinary. We obviously tonight have invited both the candidates running for the 6th district seat to speak to us on issues of agriculture in our area. And as many of you will know from being from the area, there is a rich and deep history of agriculture. I myself, we are 5 generations in this area, countless generations back, dairy farmers, and I am thrilled to see the support from the state now. Some of you will have read the Farm Action Plan that just came out through MDAR. There's a lot of incentive because they're realizing that farmers and farmland is a finite and precious resource, and that we are finally starting to get some momentum and some backing at the state level, and obviously with our candidates' consideration who've so kindly showed up tonight. John is on the way. He's a little bit stuck in traffic. He should be here any minute. So we're just waiting for him, but we don't have a mic. So thank you for those who came forward. We're gonna have to speak loudly. I'm a coach, I have no problem with that. But if you can't hear something, raise your hand and let us know. So the way that the night is gonna go is first we're gonna hear from the farmers. We're gonna hear from you guys because at the heart of the issue, we're giving Dave and John an opportunity to hear your story and what's on your mind. So I wanna open it up with introductions. Stand up, introduce yourself. If you've got a farm, what your farm is, and what an issue is that's on your mind, either as an opportunity or a challenge. And then we're going to allow Dave and John to introduce themselves, to speak a bit about agriculture, and then from there, we're gonna start doing a Q&A session. So that's the form of the night. We're gonna hit 8 o'clock maybe. We're gonna stick to agriculture, and obviously with all due politeness, as one would expect. And then if you have another issue that you'd like to speak to the candidates about, I know Dave has said, and I'm sure John as well, will be available after we've stopped the agriculture discussion to discuss any other issues. Because we know that the election is on the 6th, and people have a lot to learn. So without further ado, I will, like I said, I'm Pam Paquin. My family's been here, French Canadians came down, dairy farm. My land, 600 acres, was destroyed. Sadly, when my grandfather died, I have 4 acres of it now, and I do mostly meat and agritourism. So obviously some of the bills coming up in the House are really exciting for me. That's where I'm at, and I just would love if any of the farmers in the room could please just tell us a little bit about what you're involved in. And someone take it away.
That was easy.
No farmers.
I can start here. So, Jim McCaffrey, my wife Chrisanne. We Water Lane Farm in Dudley. We've been in business since 1910. I'm the 4th generation. We pretty much survived off agriculture for all the generations. We were strictly a dairy farm, 1945 on. Produced about 2 million pounds of milk for a growing farm. The milk industry really changed, so we had to adapt. We brought in grass-fed finished beef. probably about 10 years ago. So we run a little store at the farm. Did raw milk until last week. We actually got out of the raw milk business this last week. So we are really going to concentrate on the grass-fed and finished beef. We do pork, we do broiler chickens, laying hens, and a few other products that we have. So some local honey, maple syrup. We have a little store at the farm, and more than willing to have anybody come down and check us out. Walnut Lane Farm.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why did you get out of dairy farm?
The milk business scale way beyond what we could do with the land base here. We milked about 75, 80 cows, and we were competing with guys milking upwards of 40,000 cows. So the milk business changed rapidly over the last. It's gradually changing, and probably like the last 10 years, 10 to 15, 20 years. It really, if you weren't milking 1,000 cows, probably you weren't really a legitimate business anymore. Feed costs, just the cost of just producing. We farm about 250 acres. We do a lot of grazing. We covered almost 300 acres last year just with cattle alone. But from a dairy standpoint, the costs are too high to really make a go of it.
Did you get a fair price for your cattle when you sold?
Very good. Cattle are quite high right now. They went to a 2,000 cow dairy, a friend of ours in upstate New York.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Neil Johnson. We got Bay Mountain Farm right here in Charlton. It's a town-owned property that we lease and we run our farm business. It was a vacant orchard for a while. We have since pruned the orchard and brought it back. We do all seasonal vegetables. We got fruit trees, and we got the cider mill up and going. So we do cider in the fall. We just recently opened up our bakery. We do cider donuts and baked goods in the fall with all our pumpkin picking and stuff. We only open July through October. One problem we're having right now is just dealing with the diverse weather patterns we've been having year to year and the rising costs. Our inputs are all going in, and it's not always coming out on the other end in the green. So trying to figure out how to even that out.
Thank you.
Kevin McCarthy, Signal Rock Farm. We're a 245-acre farm up in northern end of Charlton near Ronnie's. We were doing a lot of lamb, but we're taking a break. I'm not sure whether it's temporary or permanent. We were doing 100 ewes and 250 lambs at one point. Currently we're making hay, as you can see, like that. And we're doing about 13,000 bales a year right now. Increased cost really sort of was hammering us on the lambs. Over the last 3 years, the cost of slaughter has gone up from $90 a head to $150, and everything I seem to buy costs 50 to 100% more than it did 4 years ago.
Thank you. Who else do we have here? Scott?
Just a question. Are you allowed, or are there any farm subsidies on the state level?
No,
How about the federal level?
not that I'm getting. Not with the thing. I also write crop insurance on the side, so I'm involved with a bunch of other farms, pick your own orchards and that kind of things. Specifically, the COVID money, there was a fair bit came out, but there was very little for livestock people, and really zero for hay people.
Thank you, John.
Right, sorry I'm
Welcome.
late.
It's good timing. Exits there and here, and we were just hearing some of our
Good to see you.
farmers.
Nice to meet you. Yes.
All right, if you want to stack the bales or sit in the chair.
I like the hay bales.
All right, well, thank you to Kevin from Signal Rock Farm, their second cutting, very nice. So we were just hearing from some of the farmers in town. We've heard from Walnut Lane Farm in Dudley, Bay Mountain Farm in Charlton. We just heard from Signal Rock Farm in Charlton. Is there anybody that I'm missing? Grumpy, I know you're my neighbor, and I borrow your tractor. You're in equine transport.
Yeah.
Yeah. He saved my bacon a lot with that tractor. But we've got a lot of small farmers, homesteaders, people like myself who are under 5 acres, which is really important for the Chapter 61A cutoff. But also, as you might know, back in 2011, we moved commercial farm viability down to 2 acres. because a lot of micro farms are doing really well, making products on less than 5 acres. So I'm one of those. But there are quite a few of them in the area, and so that kind of, a lot of these farms are quite large, but there are many, many homesteaders and small farms. So, does anybody else have anything that they want to say before we get started?
We just want to introduce ourselves. Sorry, my voice is going. My name is Katie, and this is my friend and colleague Lynette. We're with Dudley Ag Commission.
Yeah.
I am also a fourth generation farmer from Dudley Rosinus Farms. And on another note, I work with the Department of Agriculture. So I always love hearing different things. I do ag education, agritourism there, as well as the Dairy Promotion Board. So if anybody has any other questions afterwards.
Thank you. Say your name again?
Katie Rosinus Hansen.
Thank you, Katie.
Sorry, my voice. I'm just getting over a cold, so
No worries.
it's a lot
It's been
better
going
than
around.
last. And Lynette has a farm in Dudley as well.
What kind of farm is it?
Very tiny microflower farm.
Microflower. We were just discussing that.
We were, I think, if we were not the first, we are one of the first homegrown by Hero certified farms in the state.
That must be a process to certify.
It's not difficult.
Good. That's a good thing to hear. All right. So I think now I'd like to give the candidates a chance to introduce themselves. John, I know you've just run in. So if you want to start first, or yeah,
Whatever you'd like, whatever you'd like.
why don't we do that?
Thank you, everybody. Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm John Marcy. Those who don't know me, I've been Dudley Selectman for 12 years, 3 years as chairman, 7 years as vice chairman. I have 2 kids. My son Anthony's 20. He goes to Providence College. He's a finance major. He's a junior. My daughter Jessica is 16. She goes to Shepherd Hill. She's a special needs student. And they're my world. I am a chemical engineer by trade. I work in high-tech industry now. I have 25 plus years of business experience, budgeting, leadership, and that's prepared me to put myself forward for this role. So, why am I running? I'm running because the state needs some very strong leadership right now. Right, so I'm talking to lots of people around the district every day, and there's themes that keep coming up, right? And I want to cover some of those things tonight. We're running in a Republican primary, right? So the things that I'm hearing, people I'm talking to are okay. Number one thing on people's minds, we have a legal immigration crisis in the state, and that's costing the state a lot of money, right? Number two, we have to take care of our Massachusetts taxpayers, make sure that their wallets are taken into consideration too, and three, is someone to stand up for their Second Amendment rights. As a selectman, as a rep, there's always 3 things that I've always stood for, my priorities: public safety, local aid, and education. That's it. Right? So those are the 3 things I focus on. And all of them are related to local aid, if you really think about it. Right? So as selectmen, as town councilors, we have to think about the needs for the entire town. Sometimes it can be something everybody wants, and sometimes you get a beef for something that could be difficult for some people, but it's for the good of the whole town. Right? So some of the things that we want to make sure we do is that we always advocate for the aid to come back to the towns, right? So right now, there's $1 billion shortfall in revenue at the state, right? The revenues, tax revenues, right? That's down. And then the governor has also pledged almost $1 billion just to house immigrants under the right to shelter law, right? That's a $2 billion hole, okay? And then now she's used her 9C powers to make budget cuts, for key projects that have already been approved, right? So this is the theme here, right? And now she's provided legislation to allow municipalities the option to raise taxes on hotels and restaurants, right? So that's shifting the burden to the people of the district. So I don't think that's fair. I think that's wrong. I think we need to stand up and fight for local aid for the district and other projects that are important to us. including some that we're gonna talk about tonight.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, but why I say that, it's all about local aid. Dudley, Charlton, Southbridge, Spencer, their budgets always run on a razor thin edge. And, you know, richer towns east of us, you know, overfund their schools because they still get aid. So there's a broken funding formula for education called Chapter 70. That needs to be fixed. It's 30 years old, it's out of date, and Dudley and Charlton get hurt by this every year. In particular, we've went through this. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, because I know the problems, I know the questions to ask, and I know we need to do that. Having said all that, I said some things tonight about illegal immigrants. This isn't about the people. This is about the money. I'm the great-grandson of Italian immigrants who came here with nothing, right? They knew what it was like to struggle. And just the fact that I'm here tonight to be able to speak to you, you know, they'd be pretty proud of me. You know, I did it myself, right? But it's come time to show some leadership. Go to Beacon Hill, fight for our towns, stand with people to amend that right to shelter, to include our own residents. Because we have our veterans, we have seniors, we have people that are homeless that can't find a place to stay. And there's no plan on what to do after they house them. What about all the other services, our public safety, our schools, our mental health, you know, providers?
Our farmers.
The farmers! I see what you're doing there.
You like that?
I like that. No, I'm coming around to that. But in short, I'm the only candidate who is standing up for these things. I'm the only candidate who's being endorsed by Republicans like Senator Peter Durant, Sheriff Lou Evangelitis, and I have a 100% goal rating, and I've signed a no new taxes pledge. So, you know, at the end of the day, I humbly ask for your vote, and I would love to talk about some ideas we have for farming. So in Dudley, did you know Dudley has the highest percentage of 61A land in Worcester County? We do, right? So Dudley's a right to farm town. We have our agriculture council here, so that's very important. On the Board of Selectmen, we think it's very important for our local farms to get notice. I think it's a beneficial economic effect to have our farms, 5 acres, 2 acres, being able to use their properties as they see fit to generate a little income, but also, you know, band together. And one of the things we're working on in Dudley is, at the town hall, there's a playground that we're trying to find funding for. We actually today finalized the plans, and we're going to be looking for grant funding to not only fix the playground, but also there's going to be a farmer's market. It's one of the things we talked about for a long time, so that the Rosanuses, you know, Walnut Lane Farms, other farmers can come and bring their wares and band together. Because what that does is it creates a destination. People will come, and that creates a network effect from the other towns. You know, they're going to buy gas, they're going to buy food, and other things. And that's one of the things that, as Dudley, you know, when we say economic development, we always wanted to include our farmers, right? I believe it's very, very important to educate the next generation of farmers, the next generation, because a lot of the times I hear from people is they don't want to do it anymore. People are getting older, the costs are going up. See the stuff I said earlier, inflation and such. But I think what ends up happening is our towns send kids to Norfolk Agricultural School, which can cost, you know, $25,000, $35,000, $40,000, including transportation, to get them there. So what if there's other ways we can fix that? You know, and we've talked about this over the years, because some of the towns and some of the budgets, that's a budget buster. You want to support the kid, get them in there, they're going to learn something valuable, they're going to bring it back home to their family farm, and they're going to keep it going. So I've always supported that. But there's a lot of things that people have done. Rep Durant, when he's state rep, and Rep Meridian, we're working with Tufts, you know, to work on, you know, find a place to have, you know, a local place for the kids to go. You know, be cheaper for the towns to transport them, and we could keep it somewhat local. So they have the facility, they have the capacity. They just need the funding. I mean, alternatively, I know that another thing we could do is have it in Southbridge. mean, I think Southbridge has the capacity. I think the receiver has shown that to be something positive for them over the years, the last couple of years. So that's something we could certainly look into as well. So,
Thank you, John.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for that.
Thank you for sitting on my hay bale.
I love the hay
I'm
bales.
impressed. All right, I'll pass it over to
All
Jay.
right, thank
Thanks,
you.
man, appreciate it.
Thank
John,
you.
finally, good
Yeah,
to meet you as well.
absolutely.
So forgive me if I wrote a little bit of notes here, but I'm here to talk to you guys about, a little bit about myself, but you as farmers out here and the issues that you guys are having in the state of Massachusetts, from slaughterhouse issues to being cost effective for your farms and to raise your families, and that's what I'm here to. This is the purpose of the forum itself. So to give you a little background, I was raised in Southern California. I joined the United States Marine Corps at the age of 18. I joined the Marine Corps Reserves, and then I found myself partying a little bit too much, and I had to grow up and leave Southern California. So I did. I went on active duty, never looked back. Deployed all around the world and all that, and had thousands upon thousands of Marines and sailors and actually civilians under me. In 2013, end of 2013, I retired. What I did was I went ahead and took a year off. I needed a little bit of breather and did that. I taught at Trinity Catholic Academy for a few years there, and now I'm the part-time veterans agent in the town of Oxford, Massachusetts. I'm also the president of the Veterans Council of Southbridge. We just did a $120,000 park. Didn't have to worry about local taxes. We got donations for that. Been a counselor for now going on 6 years. I always said if I did a beer bet that I'd be here tonight, or I'd be a town councilor, I'd be broke, because I never thought I'd be in this position. My career was the Marine Corps, period. This is a passion that I have to help my communities, and I always have been. I jump in with both feet, period. I'm always on my toes, never on my heels. That being said, I was asked by Pam a few months ago, the Senator Fadman, to sit on a farming and agricultural dialogue for at Nichols College, which of course I jumped right in because I understand the area a little bit better. Now, I'm not coming from this area. I just want to give you a little quick history. In Southern California, I grew up in Orange County. Right, there's John Wayne Airport, they call it Orange County Airport right there. But when I was growing up, it was a top plane airport. That was it. Now they got, jets flying in all the time. All that's surrounded is farms. All was surrounded with farms. He brought the immigrants in from Mexico on work visas, and they came in and did a lot of the work that somebody like myself was not going to do. Right? So, but we saw over time with the tech boom, they decided to take that farmland, buy that farmland up. The farmers gave up because it was too expensive for them to farm and raise anything. So most of that stuff went up to Central California. And now all it is buildings upon buildings upon buildings, and now jets are flying in left and right, and there's no more really farmland. This is where Orange County got all your orange groves, your strawberry groves, everything out there. That's all gone now. One thing I learned at this forum back in November was it was a good point that they made. Once you give up that land, somebody's going to build on top of that. They're going to put a building, a structure, or something like that. And 9 times, or probably say 10 times out of 10, you're never going to get that land back to a farming or a forestry area, period. There's always going to be a building. Our issues here in Worcester County, within the 6th Worcester District, as you sell off your acreage because you can't afford it, or you have to switch how you're farming and what you're growing and stuff like that, people take advantage of that and they want to take that land. Thing is, we're kind of in the breadbasket of this area. I mean, you've got a lot of farms here. And so, I've sat down for the last few months and kind of educated myself. So excuse my ignorance if I don't know everything, because I'm no subject matter expert, period. I'll always learn and listen and discuss. But this is a prime opportunity for economic development in the farming area and bringing that back, that type of trade back to our schools. From a VOAG, instead of Bay Path, we talked about bringing that over to Southbridge as well, because not everybody is academically inclined. I am not academically inclined. I need to work with my hands. I need to be outside. That's who I am. That's my family, stuff like that. My father was a farmer in Pennsylvania. Got out of the business pretty quickly. My young nephew down in Oklahoma is now he worked for a slaughterhouse, and he taught me a lot. A lot more than I expected and even wanted to know about slaughter. And the fact is he even talked about starting up a mobile slaughter station so he can go around because they're having the same problem. So at that forum that we talked about at Nichols, that was also brought up. So bringing farms back here, tax breaks, whatever we can possibly do to help you out, that's what I'm here for, to absolutely listen to you and take your discussions and your expertise and your differences of opinions and then formulate the plan and exercise that plan. Now don't forget, we talk about economic development, bringing it back to the schools. Academia is great. You go to school forever, right? But you walk out of there with a major loan, a major debt automatically. At the same time, you give somebody a trade. They're walking out of high school with that trade and able to work and sustain themselves, period, which brings financial independence to them and to us and to our children and grandchildren as we go along. We can continue to talk about all these other great things, but there has to be action because I'm telling you right now, I know you have a lot of legislation on the books for this year alone, talking about PFAS issues in our water systems. That was an issue when we talked about our right to farm within Southbridge. People were scared that Central Core would be contaminated, our water would be contaminated. The thing is, it was pure ignorance not to understand it and to learn from it. It was automatically no. So I'm here to listen to you all today. Your complaints, your concerns, your happiness, whatever it may be. And that's what I bring back to the 6th Worcester District. So I ask for your vote on February 6th for the primary and then March 5th to be your next state representative. But we talk about a few other things. Processing facilities. I mean, how many do we have in the state? 3? I think it's 3 that we may have. 1 or 3. So you have to end up going to New York to get slaughtered, all that kind of stuff. So it's more expensive. So what I'm here is to listen to all of you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dave. So I think the whole reason that I organized this, very much with the help of Eric and the Grange, Mark Karen, who we've worked with on a Slaughterhouse Project and the VOAG consideration in Southbridge, a lovely man named Matt Karen who works at the state level and had helped us with the slaughterhouse issue. We want your voices heard. So, and they want to listen. So now's the time. If you have questions for the candidates about an issue that matters to you, now is the time to ask with regard to agriculture. And as I said, both of them have said that they're willing to have a chat. If there's another issue separate from ag that you would like to talk about when we wrap up the agriculture conversation. So, would you like to, Grumpy, start us off?
Yeah, you're talking about maybe adding more slaughterhouses?
Yes, yeah, there's actually a report and plan that's been put together for Southbridge already, and it's been of primary importance both federally and state.
Okay, now I can understand, and maybe the need for more, for increased slaughterhouse for beef, pork, lamb,
Chickens, turkeys.
turkey, understand that. But would it also include a 100% ban on horses?
What, you gonna eat your horses?
Well, they used to slaughter horses for dog food.
It's illegal.
As far as I know,
it's illegal.
horses are illegal to be slaughtered.
Correct. They have to go to Canada or Mexico.
All right, so
No horses.
so that would still be a ban.
Correct.
But you can do it yourself.
Sometimes you have to,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Can I pipe in? It's a good question because it's something I would never consider at this point in time in our day and age. But absolutely, anything that's the federal, it's banned. We can't sit here and say, as a town of Southbridge, we're going to override what the federal government has to say. So
There's a lot of things that happen behind the, on the slide. Like another thing that's totally illegal that a lot of people don't know about. All right, you see a tractor trailer going down the road, and a double decker that's got 2 rows of cows on it. Legal. 2 rows of horses, 100% illegal, but people don't know it. and the truck will continue on down the road. Because people don't know it's illegal, so it doesn't get reported. Well, those trucks are en route to Canada.
So we kind of forget about those things. We don't understand those things, and that's why we're here to listen to you today and have that conversation with you and say, okay, you know more than I would ever know when it comes to this. You know, my nephew, who works for the state of Oklahoma as an inspector at the slaughterhouses, he started off at a smaller slaughterhouse, cut meat and all that kind of stuff. He gave me an insight I would never understand. You know, when they go to kill the horse or the cattle, sorry, the horse, that's on my mind, but the cattle itself, they have to show proficiency that the first shot takes care of the issue, right? If you don't, they shut you down right away. And so what he decided to do was become an inspector. And those guys don't make a lot of money, those inspectors, at all. They give them a truck and tell them to go to this local slaughterhouse and inspect them. So I would have never known that if my nephew wasn't part of that process or that organization. So thank you for your question, because I wouldn't have thought about that at all.
Just to chime in there, like anytime we can take advantage of grants or you know, legislation that would bring things closer to the 6th Worcester district is better for our farmers, especially our meat producers, because that lowers our overall costs and you know, it makes it, you know, more easily acceptable to people, accessible to people in the district. So one of the things I'm a strong believer in is that the town should decide what kind of town they want to have. So if Southbridge wants to have a slaughterhouse, and that passes the planning board and the council and town meeting, then that's the town that they've chosen to have, and the rep in that role will take that to make sure that stuff happens, right? So local control is best.
I'll tell you what problem you're gonna run into, NIMBY.
Well, that's, as with most of these issues, right? I mean, one of the things that we touched on earlier, like a lot of this open land, the incentives are so high for things like solar, right? But then, you know, so people like my farms do, I have extra land, I'll sell it off, we'll put solar panels on it, you know, and that's a very, 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 you know, touchy issue, you know, in Dudley and Charlton and other places. But, you know, we need to fix the incentives there. But when you're trying to get those through, even though they provide some economic benefit for the landowner and the municipality, you know, a lot of people come out really hard against it because they don't want it anywhere near them.
Yeah,
So it's all about finding, you know, the right place. Do you have an appropriate place for it? Do you have the appropriate, you know, staff? Do you have people who can, you know, come in and actually work there and follow the regulations to have something like that? I would support having such a facility, again, that is more local, that has more local control for our people who want to use it.
Thank you.
You know,
Kevin?
I want to mention something directly related to this whole slaughterhouse thing, and also get into an issue of over consolidation monopolies. We use this small slaughterhouse up in New Hampshire, and at one shot, having put the animal down, they had problems with that. One day, they needed a second to put an animal down. They got closed down for 3 months, and all of a sudden, we had no place to slaughter. We had all sorts of animals booked there that we were supposed to slaughter in December. They ended up getting done in March. We had the entire cost of carrying it for the winter. Plus, we had customers that couldn't get it. A large slaughterhouse is busy doing animals every minute. You know, the inspector can't walk around and see what's going on. Whereas if you have a small slaughterhouse that's doing 5 or 10 cows, when we brought up 22 sheep, that was it for the day. You know, they're minutiae with this. And then we also have issues with consolidation. You know, for example, the local, fortunately I don't own John Deere tractors, but I know that all the John Deere dealers throughout New England and eastern New York were bought up by a place from Texas. And the first thing they did when they took over all those dealerships, and they basically told the dealerships that, you know, they could sell out to them, and they do a long-term ground lease on their facilities, or they could just lose the dealership in 3 years and oh well. The first thing they did when they took over was raise the prices by 25%, and they don't stock any parts either. So, you know, this is an issue for us. You know, just I'm not sure how much you can do at the state level to stop over consolidation and, you know, private equity coming in and buying things up and then becoming rent seekers and just you know, just trying to squeeze as much as they can out of it, but it's a real issue.
So it's interesting, again, I refer back to my nephew, because their place got shut down. It wasn't for 3 months though. And their inspectors, I believe here in the state of Massachusetts, you have an inspector at every facility every day, correct? Okay, so thank you for, at least I read up on that and understand it. Down in Oklahoma, they have inspectors that just hit sites as they go along and do 1 or 2, 3, 4, and they stay there for the day, and then they move on to make sure, they're just making sure that everything is copacetic, everything is run right, but they're not trying to shut the places down. So here, sometimes in the state of Massachusetts, I see a lot of overregulation, unfunded mandates, all that kind of stuff that are unnecessary and a little bit too much over control. You got to give some of that back to the people that are actually making the living. Mistakes are going to be made, no doubt about it. We do this every single day, but to shut down a place for 3 months is ridiculous, because now prices are going up. You have to spend more fuel. You have to go outside of that. They lose business, and they have to try to make that money back. They'll raise the prices as well. So, you know, overregulation sometimes is good, but I got to tell you, when they got shut down for like 2 days. They brought an inspector out there, made sure that everybody who did the slaughtering was doing everything properly right, and they moved on and said, go back, because they were also, they slaughtered the cattle, and then what they did, or even buffalo, they slaughtered the buffalo as well. And then what they did was they did the cutting there at the facility, and they sold it. It was a mom and pop's place. They had a couple places, but it was a small business, and they didn't want to kill that business, because it will in a day or two. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, sometimes the free market give it, the free market take it, right? You know, we always want to keep and buy local, number one. I think everybody supports that. Even when you get into things like equipment and parts, you need to be able to like get back up and running. So things like that helps. Again, we don't want over-regulation. Again, I mean, I stand for like local control. You know, we don't need any more like state mandates that become unfunded, like Dave said, because then that just adds another burden to the town, which makes it harder for people to operate their farms. So that's what I say. So, you know, local control is best in all cases.
Yeah, real local control, like you guys,
That's right.
you know?
I saw a hand back there. Go ahead.
My name is George Shender. I'm a town councilor. Never was a farmer, and probably will never be. I'm 68 years old. I'm a consumer that utilizes the products that you sell. And when I go to a local market, I get upset when the market person that owns it tells me that the reason eggs have gone up is because our state legislators had regulate where you can't have caged hens no more. They're going to be cage free. Same thing with the pork. They regulated the pork, and the cost is borne by us as the consumer. People are tired of the regulations. For me, I don't know what's the difference between a caged egg and a free-range egg. All I know is I get up in the morning, I cook it and scramble it, and it's the same thing with the pork. But I do know that it's a staple to the most of the American people, and especially the poor people. Pork and eggs. How, as potential legislators, are you going to be able to prevent or stop these regulations for these farmers to be able to bring to the market a reasonable product? That's another question that I would hope you'd be able to answer. 61A land, farmland. How can you as state legislators work with our local communities to prevent 40B land mongols from taking farmland and turning it into housing with, as we know, 40B land is almost a regulation that bypasses the town and able to do it. So those two questions, how would you help with the regulations, and how would you help prevent 40B land from farmland being taken for 40B property?
Thanks, George. I just want to quickly bring up, I do know at the federal level, to address your point, I haven't seen it at the state level, but at the federal level, there's something called the Farm Act, and what they're looking to do, speaking to the scarcity of USDA inspectors at slaughterhouses, is to allow farmers under certain protocol and conditions to slaughter themselves on farm and sell directly to the public. So that's one way, and that's at the federal level. But to that point of the increased cost, to farmers, and then the knock-on effect of a higher price good afterward around regulation. So that is on the federal schedule, but not on the state schedule. But I'll pass that off, and let's mix it up. John, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. No, George, thanks for your questions. Those are some good ones. So as far as like prices go, you know, like you said, these are basic staples, right? You know, and the way I stand is like for eggs. Like there's a lot of people in our towns who like to have their own, right? They like to have some chickens in the backyard. And what happens when people get, you know, while good intentioned, go to, you know, make these laws that think that they're going to, you know, benefit everybody. But at the end of the day, all it does is drive up the cost, and it makes more work for the, you know, the homeowner who, you know, may not have a total mini farm, but they might want to have chickens. And if the local zoning regulations allow it, they should have the chickens. They want to grow eggs, they should be able to go have their own eggs, and they want to sell some of the eggs to other people, make a little extra money, they should be able to do that. So same with the pork, right? I was talking with the butcher at Price Chopper a couple weeks ago. I went, holy crap, look at, you know, pork chops, what happened here? And he said, well, we have to, you know, get them some of these, we're out of stock from Connecticut because the price of what we could buy because of the regulations, you know, just to have something on the shelf. So it wasn't even just, you know, the price, it was availability, right? And this is the danger of like over-regulating. So as a state legislator, I would always fight anything that would, you know, push down on our local, not only just our towns, but in this specific cases, our farms, right? Because again, everybody we have our, especially in Dudley, we are a right to farm town, and you know, people want to do that, they should be able to do that without having somebody in Boston or even at the federal level, some of these new rules telling them what to do. That'll keep the cost down and make the availability higher, right? So it also provides choice. People may not want to buy them at the store, they want to buy them at their local farm or from the neighbor up the street who has a little cottage industry of it. They should have the choice to do that. As for your other question about 40B,
Yeah.
right? Towns should, again, towns can support what kind of towns that they want to have. In my case, a lot of people, while we have a lack of housing in our towns as it is, you know, that's a big decision. And as a selectman, we've always like worked with those landowners, to make sure that, you know, everybody's thinking this through, right? It's easy for them to like put it into, you know, tax, you know, shelter or just allow a developer to, you know, get that. But that's all about the people you elect at the local level to make sure that, you know, people are, you know, keeping the characters of the town. We've done a really good job with that in Dudley. I think some of the other towns this will resonate with, that we shouldn't, you know, have that. We got to find other ways to get housing, right? That doesn't take away from open farmland, you know, to put something or some monstrosity where it doesn't belong. Right, so the towns should push back where applicable on that. That's what I believe.
Thanks, John. Dave?
So forgive me, I've got that short memory that I have, sometimes it kicks in. But just as far as the self-sustainability, you're talking about the prices going up. I gave a story about Orange County, California, and all of a sudden their strawberries, the cost of them went skyrocketing because now all of our farmland has disappeared up to Central California, which is a prime real estate and great place to farm. If you've ever been there, or I would suggest you go there just to see the massive farms that are out there, the beauty of the whole place. But the fact is, when they took all that stuff out and they sold it to the techs and they put apartments and housing and all that kind of stuff, that all went away and the prices of everything went up. So again, I go back to education. You bring that back to our communities and bring it into our high schools that we have as part of like a VOTEC or a VOAG. You know, we talk about Southbridge doing that. I know Senator Fatman had talked about pinpointed with Southbridge in mind personally, but don't forget about Bay Path. Those individuals have the technology to help us out because that's what they do, and it's great. So, you know, one thing is bringing that education back to our youth to help out the young adults, that helps out the farmers themselves, and hopefully those prices will stay the same or lower as long as you don't lose the farmland. I think that's the biggest thing, is when you lose that farmland, you have no choice anymore. You lose everything at that point in time. You got your mom and pop side vegetables and eggs and stuff like that, which we buy from all the time, my wife and I. But, you know, we started losing our farmland. That's the biggest thing. We started losing our farmland and the interest from our farmers because it's going to be more economically, they're more economically inclined to leave because somebody's going to buy their land and they don't have to do all that hard work anymore to sustain their families and help them out. So education is one. Getting the word out and pounding the pavement, you got to, because I think, you know, we have a food shortage for a lot of people within our communities as well. So I think I asked with that education portion, I asked giving them the availability, they can help lower the cost, educate themselves, they can grow their own, and I highly recommend that because I've learned that last couple of years, and I know what soil to use and what not to use, and messed it up pretty good. But you know, the education is a big thing. As far as the 40B, and you know, Southbridge knows a lot about the 40B projects. What we've done as a council, though, is we jumped all in, because if we don't partner up with some of these individuals or these contractors and owners of the land and the buildings that's going to go on the management company, then we don't really have a say in how it's going to look. If we sat there and said, no, we don't, we provided free permits for them to build on some old mill buildings, and the apartments look great, affordable housing. But if you sit there as a town council and say, we don't want to give you nothing, you don't have a choice. You have the 10% portion that you're required to have within each town, which is the law. And I said this to the town administrator here in this town. I said, how's your affordable housing coming along as you guys are building a lot in Charlton? He said, oh, they're coming. They're coming. There's now ways to slow it down, but Southbridge is going to hit the 10%. Guess where they're coming next? They're coming to Dudley and they're coming to Charlton. There's no doubt about it, because you have that land. So you have to get with your selectmen and your town administrators to help that out a little bit and slow that process down. But your town hall staff, your economic advisors, your planners and stuff like that have to get on the ball now and start working with the town administrator to ensure that there's a smooth process when affordable housing comes your way. And you know, we've learned the hard way. We've made our mistakes because we're capable of slowing that process down a little bit. If you don't have that law in place or the policy in place, they're going to be knocking at your doors. So that's the hard part about the 40B. We want to make sure people have housing, but at the same time, as John had said, you want to keep that small town feeling about you, or that keeping that the bones together within the towns you have. So I hope I answered your questions, George. Thank you.
I think I saw a question up front. Go ahead.
It's more of a statement that to go along with the local food movement. I would just suggest that the both of you familiarize yourselves with our neighbors in Maine who have passed a very awesome food sovereignty law that basically gives the communities and the people in those communities the right to choose where they're buying their food from without any state oversight. It removes a lot of red tape, and I think it does a lot to increase food security in communities. And I would love to see Massachusetts follow suit, but I will not be holding my breath.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
I would just add, with the budget that just got passed from the governor, there is going to be a new Department of Food Security at the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. So hopefully that's something that we'll look at that. I don't know, Lynette, see what happens. But I did want to say, with the chicken thing, with the free range and that was a question that was voted on and passed, correct? It was like
Yes.
6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to clarify. And then with the 61A, I thought towns had the first right of refusal to buy.
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
Just wanted to.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's a good question, because we get that all the time in Southbridge. We have the first right to refuse, period. But the price of the land that they're asking for with our budgets, trying to work it in without increasing the taxes itself, is really difficult to maintain. Because when we take a look at it, it says, it's probably worth $15,000, but the going price now is $60,000. How do towns take that and say to the residents and the taxpayers of our community, say, we took that land for something, we hope it gets donated to like places like Peckham or other things, so we don't lose that feel about our town or that land itself, that acreage. But it's tough to sit there and make that decision. I don't know how many we've done over the last 6 years. And not that we wouldn't mind having it, it's just the cost of it, and then passing that on to you.
Yeah, no, let me just add to that a little bit. Like in Dudley, you know, we tend to push back heavily on that because there's other ways to, other than using farmland. Dudley has the Stevens Linen Mill. For over 10 years, I worked to make sure that got turned into a historical building on the National Historic Register that got turned into something that was useful. That did a few things. One, it provided housing, market rate housing, which also had a 10%, below market rate that Dudley seniors had first crack at. So it was able to, bump our percentage of housing stock up. It did that, and it kept it in the, in the downtown, if you want to call it that area, and kept it away, people's eyes off these other, properties that have come, the family just doesn't want it anymore. They come up for sale, and you get some economic development, at the other end of it, some businesses down below. We've had some other parcels that have gotten for sale over here. There's a 55-acre property that ended up turning into a hemp farm. Right, that was something. There's a couple of hemp farmers in Dudley that just something they could use. We have, like I mentioned earlier, that we have the highest percentage of 61A land in Worcester County, or maybe even beyond. But a lot of it isn't crops or livestock or anything like that. It's hay, right? So people are at least the land is being used. It's being productive and it's providing services to other farms. So my point was find the right place to do that. Right? We all need more housing, but I'd much rather, being a resident and taxpayer myself, I'd much rather have it, where it belongs than somebody coming in and telling me where they're going to put it. So pushing back, electing the right people who see that, have the vision, to grow the towns in the right direction where people want.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. I think I saw one over here. Go ahead.
My name's Rich Lava, small farm right down the road here in Charlton. I met a bunch of you guys at the Nichols thing, which was awesome. Slaughterhouse was a great conversation we've been having for a long time. Something I brought up at Nichols was about poultry, just poultry. So New York State, well, let me start. The states have the ability to make that call on processing on farm. The states have that ability, excuse me. In New York State, it's 5 simple rules. Under 1,000 birds per year, process on farm, sell direct to consumer, and it's real simple. So I'd love to hear someone's thoughts on something similar to that and making that happen, because poultry, turkeys are really hard to get slaughtered in this state. Really, really tough.
Yeah,
and
it's
very
just
expensive.
the Phonies in Rhode Island and then a place up in Maine. I mean, I don't know any other poultry slaughterhouses that are USDA certified than those two.
So there's 3 that are state inspected that are in the area, but to do it on farm would just
and profit margins.
and more farmers would do it. They would just bring more food to local economy.
You guys wanna?
Well, I guess my question here is why is Massachusetts not doing that? You would think over-regulation that they would allow that to happen. I'm just gonna ask you that question. Do you know why they don't allow that?
I think it's just what you said, over-regulation.
Over-regulation?
It's my thought.
Absolutely. You gotta give the farmers back their freedom a little bit and stop coming from Boston and telling people what to do and how they're gonna do it. I understand regulation. It's all, our country's built on rules and regs, and that's what we have, and laws. But sometimes the overbearing individuals who don't see a day-to-day operation like yours will never understand. Who are these people making that decision? I can't put myself in your shoes, but you make common sense that we should be able to do that. And of course, and again, the cost would go down. Absolutely would go down. Instead of wasting our time sending 50 chickens here and there, or your poultry here and there. It's just costing too much money. So, if that would be the conversation we would have on another forum, and they keep doing this, and then, after February 6th or after March 5th or whatever it may be, these are conversations we have to have. But at the same time, then you have to say, what's the plan? How are you gonna present it? Who's gonna be on board with you? And try to get that way. So you work across party lines. You have to in a lot of ways to get the individuals, the majority of legislation to act on it and be productive members of a society that you're blue collar workers here. You know, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. No, thanks for the question. I mean, it all goes back to, local control. What kind of town do you want to have? We talked about having a slaughterhouse, for certain types of things. We know the poultry is harder because of the wastewater runoff, there's all those other considerations. We run into that even on people who have, chickens, and even in Dudley, we get that thing. So we have our inspector go and make sure, right? So if the zoning allows it, so this goes back to like really, I mean, this is hyper local at this point, right? What kind of district do we want to be? Like if we want to have a local slaughterhouse that will take all kinds of livestock, including all types of poultry, those zoning regulations have to be crafted in such a way and plans put in place to handle the wastewater, the runoff, all that remediation, so people will feel comfortable. Again, coming forward at a town meeting and say, you know what, I support our local meat producers, and this is something we need, right? So town meeting is super important. That's one of the greatest things. The best forms of government we have is, people, and the world is run by those who show up, right? And when they come up and say, this is something we need. Talk to your local selectmen. Talk to your planning board, your zoning board. This is something that they have control over. To say this is what we want, put it forward, and then work with the state. The state will always have a say in these overarching environmental issues. We mentioned about PFAS, so we'll get to that in a little bit, I'm sure. But I would go and push for something like that. I would absolutely take that. The town says, this is something we want. It's all about negotiation, collaboration, and common sense to show people like this is what people want. Why not? Right? And it's all about finding the right people to come together and get this done. That's the job of a rep, right? Is to listen. That's why Dave and I are taking some notes tonight. So we're educating ourselves on this. But I'm hearing a theme. Pamela talked about the slaughterhouse. That was one of the main themes. But the poultry adds another layer to that, right? Because of the other considerations. So again, hyper local. Making sure that it's what it decided is that you have the ability to shape it. Whatever town decides that they want to put it in. If it's Southbridge, then the Southbridge Town Council and all the other departments and town meetings say yes, let's do this. And then I would push for the state to say yes, this is what people want.
Well, while we have you real quick, you were talking about getting pork chops at Price Chopper. Just so you know, you've got at least a half a dozen people in this room that have like a whole freezer full that are ready to sell them.
Yeah, right.
So that's like the bare minimum way that you can support is to shop local with your local
I love it.
neighbors.
I love
Okay.
that's the way it should be. And,
Right.
and one of the things, the network effect of everybody banding together, so is education. So people actually know that they can actually get that there. A lot of people are under the time crunch. One of the things we did in Dudley on the vegetable front, we have Farmer Tim's, sort of like a vegetable co-op. I could imagine some sort of like a meat co-op. So people like, for the X dollars a month, I know I'm going to get these types of things, and the different farms can put in meats to sell bundles. And I think that would benefit a lot of people.
We've got Farmer at the Door, which is a service like that locally. And there was also, I don't know if you guys, any of you are a part of it, but Fresh Please was a website where you could see a map of who produces what, so that you could go visit that farm. So there's absolutely that. The technology supporting the direct-to-consumer sales from farms is growing, and COVID was a huge boost to that. One of the things actually that I want to bring up for people who do produce meat and vegetables to sell to people is currently SNAP machines. So we want to talk about the ability to pay for food. People who have WIC or SNAP, the machines for farmers, they have to pay $400 to buy a machine so that they can process those cards. That's how much it costs a farmer. So for a lot of farmers, they're like, why am I spending $400 so I can sell to people? It doesn't make financial sense for them. So at the state level, if there's a way to help the government make those SNAP and WIC card processors free to farmers, or at a minimum expense at least, or something like that. It's something to consider, because again, we have our customer base, and we would like to expand that, and we would like to be inclusive to people who have nutritional needs that aren't being met. But that's one prime example of the way a state policy is prohibitive of an effort to feed people with nutritional needs.
Well, just let me think about that, right? That just screams a new incentive program, right? Wouldn't it be great if it's, we have like, incentives for people to put solar panels on their house, to get their, their homes insulated differently like that? Why not have an incentive for farmers to actually be able to do that and to sell directly to people, right? It's local, it's more nutritious, it's less processed, it's easier to get at, and again, the economic development effect of buying local and people, sharing their resources to get that done. So I would support that 100%.
I believe MDR's been handing out SNAP machines all the time for free. They're constantly
They were charging them.
Emails.
Back during COVID.
I definitely know that they did have a program where they offered them at a reduced rate, or like it was a grant deal for a little while.
For a limited time.
Could get
For a limited time.
Yeah.
It's just hard because it doesn't mesh with our POS that we're using now, so it's just another added thing to do.
Well, and not all of the different benefits, you're allowed to buy certain things with them.
Right.
Like some stuff you can not buy honey, others you can buy honey, some you can't buy,
Like
just
the senior coupons at farmers markets can't be used for protein.
Yeah, it's weird, but HIP is different than SNAP, and then WIC is different than senior
Right.
coupon.
I just want to give Dave a chance to respond to that. Go ahead.
Well, one of the bills that are up there talk about lowering the tax rates on farmland. I think that's a great idea because it gives an incentive for everybody at that point in time. It gives you a break. I mean, I don't know how low it can actually go, but we do that with seniors throughout the country when they hit a certain age, their property taxes either freeze or they get lowered or whatever it may be. I don't see a reason why we can't even do that with the farmers themselves, because they are providing some type of economic and it's feeding your family, so it's taken care of. I did have, Pam brought up a good point, COVID, right? So in February, before COVID actually, in I think it was November, December, my wife and I went and bought a fifth wheel. Right? I always wanted a fifth wheel. And at the last meeting in Nichols College, it was brought up about the harvest host, right? Is any farmers out here doing that at this point in time? When we talk about tourism?
Agritourism.
Yeah. Anybody?
Behind you.
So, I know she has one over there, but I can't drop off my fifth wheel over there.
No.
But what I'm saying is that's another reason why people come out. I say I bought the fifth wheel before the pandemic. I was not just jumping on board like everybody else did, bought trailers at that point in time for skyrocketing prices. But my wife and I do travel quite a bit in our fifth wheel, and sometimes you go to places and I swear it's a city. And I don't want a city. I want trees. I want open land and stuff like that. So has anybody ever thought about doing that, or is it cost effective for you to be able to sell your own products to these individuals that may go there for a day or two to go see a site, and like going down to Boston or going to Springfield or going, has anybody thought about doing that? I thought there was a family that was doing it. And they said they put like 2 or 3.
Yeah. Whittier Farms is doing it.
Oh, is it? Are they? How's that? Do you know how that's going?
I don't, and actually the discussion that night at Nichols, we have a customer at our farm stand who has done it before, and she says, oh, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, and she made it sound pretty simple and straightforward, but then the Whittier discussion made it sound a little more challenging than
I wonder if it's just
on the host side of it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the town regulations that's causing the little bit of red tape, or the town saying that's good. I think I looked it up today because I do have the app. That's why I was looking at my phone. I have an app for it too as well, besides finding out where the gas stations are here in Massachusetts. It's not like the South. You guys said the gas station on every every mile on the highway out there. But I think it's like $200 a year that you can use it, and you can go to any of the places because it ultimately benefits the farmer because they'll be able to sell their product there. They rent it, you know, obviously you gotta have the gray and black water dumping area, but, or maybe not, they dry camp, whatever it may be, but I just wanted to know if any farmers around here even thought about doing something, an investment, and that's something that the state should be able to help out with, because if you're willing to do that, that brings tourism to your area, and brings people to buy your products, so I just wanted to ask that question, see if it was out there. Thanks.
There's
only so many hours in the day.
There's actually a bill.
There's always one more, right?
Dave, there's a, and John, I think I sent you guys the list, but there is a bill currently at the state level talking about the definition of agriculture, including agricultural tourism and education. So there will be legislation for you to work on and support around diversifying income for farmers and allowing them to expand, include education, include a site perhaps like that in future. So there is legislation to support there. I'm cognizant of the fact that we're running up on 8 o'clock, and I would like to keep everybody going to bed at a decent hour because the cows need us in the morning. So I have one more question. I just would love to give it to you.
Thanks so much. Sorry, just got a new hip. My name is Kathleen Walker, and I'm a resident of Charlton for a long time. My question doesn't directly relate to agriculture, but indirectly. Since it looks as if we will get a Republican representative, and since my understanding is that the Republicans in the state don't work with the Democrats, maybe they do now, but they never used to. What you guys could have great ideas and wonderful proposals, but if you can't get them across to the majority party and get support from the majority party, then you really can't get much done. So I guess my question is, how do you see your ability to influence other people, particularly the Democrats, which I am one, in the State House, to look at your ideas and the ideas that you've heard today and tonight, so that they can move forward?
That's a great last question. I'll give you guys, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, Kathleen, good to see you. You know Kathleen a long time. Number one, I mean, I hear that a lot. You know, what are you guys gonna do? You're outnumbered. You're not gonna get anything done. I disagree, right? The fact that myself and Dave put ourselves out there shows that we're willing to put the work in to actually go there and make a difference. I wouldn't have done this otherwise. I have 25 years of business experience, a lot of partnerships. This is all about, working with people. This isn't we and they. When it's an issue for your district, it doesn't. Sometimes we're not just the rep for the Republicans or the Democrats. You're a rep for the whole district. It might lean a certain way on some issues. That means you got to work with people. You have to convince them. Use your powers of persuasion, right? Cross-functional skills. Like you might have a rep from Eastern Mass that might join if they can make the argument that this district needs it. So it's putting in the work. It's building relationships, it's building partnerships, and working to make sure that we get that point across. Like I mentioned local aid earlier, that's what this is all about, right? It's making sure that we stand up for our district, no matter what it takes, right? Build partnerships, and push things forward and gain enough people to sign on to it so it'll come to reality. It's as simple as that. It's all about partnerships, putting in the work, being educated on the issues, and bringing people to your side, right? And I have a lot of years of doing that. So
Thank you, John.
That's an outstanding question. I don't know if you know Southbridge very well, but I'm surrounded by Democrats everywhere I look, including the town council. For the last 6 years, we've accomplished quite a bit working together. Sometimes it's not about the party, it's about the individual and the leadership and management skills that they actually have, and the ability to absolutely have a conversation with somebody to end up coming to a focal point that we can work together on something. It's not, I'm a lifelong Republican. Since I was 18 years old, I was in Reagan country. I'm Republican. I also know Reagan worked across the line quite a bit with Tip O'Neill and got things accomplished there. I'm sure there's a lot of things you can criticize and I can criticize, but they did that. That's what I grew up with. You know, sometimes it's your personality that comes around and actually be able to sell the product, not to use them, but to come on common ground and help the better good, because it's really about our communities here, right? It's the 4 communities that we represent, period. You know, obviously there's the big state stuff and there's some federal stuff here and there, but when you come back over here, these are the people I have to answer to, you know. And so I'll give you a perfect example. In the town of Southbridge, we had this thing called the Family Health Center of Worcester. They are state organized, or a not-for-profit organization that one day, out of nowhere, decided to shut its doors. But they were $12 million in the hole to the state. They owed them loans, and we found out about it. You know who I found out about it? Well, a far left, very liberal individual from Worcester. She called me, the Republican guy, because we had worked together in the town itself, not about politics, about the health care of our elderly. And so she called me, and we stopped them from closing down just enough time that we can get our wits about what was going on, and having meetings with senators and mayors and all that kind of stuff. So that being said, we worked across party lines because we never saw the party line. It was a need of my community that came first before I'm worried about if somebody's a far left person or a far right person. And I'm going to tell you, since on this campaign, I've heard I'm a MAGA guy and I'm a Democrat. I'm Dave. That's who I am. I'm Dave Adams, and that's always who I've been. That's why I rose to the rank I did in the Marine Corps. I worked all the time and had conversations. It's not about yelling and screaming. It's about selling the product. The mission comes first, and the mission is our communities.
All right, so that's it. And if you'd like to speak to either of the candidates, please feel free to come on up and have a chat. Have a great night, you guys. Thank you so much, and stay in touch. I'm so pleased with the turnout, and I'm just grateful to all of you for showing up, and for our wonderful media guys from Charlton and Southbridge capturing this for us early.